What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Katie Layden.
Fuego here.
Robert Duell.
And we are here to review Color Out of Space, you guys. Now, this is the newest Richard Stanley movie after 25 years or so.
I like the amount of time.
The last one he did was, of course, the infamous Island of Dr. Moreau. Fuego and I actually did a review of Lost Soul, the something of Richard Stanley. I don't remember. Look that up on the channel and make sure you put in all those somethings.
Yeah, fascinating documentary though about just all of the failures of him trying to get that Island of Dr. Moreau movie made, being removed from the project. But he did also have a cult classic like Hardware long before that, and then a very strange and seldom seen film called Dust Devil that I have actually checked out. Uneven, but still fascinating in its kind of westerny strangeness of sorts. So yeah, I mean, we've all been waiting a long ass time to see him do something else like officially. So.
So, Color Out of Space. We actually did a trailer reaction for this not too long ago, and it's been billed as a Lovecraftian horror piece. And I will say that if we'll do this review like we normally do, then we'll do our overall thoughts, then our story, acting effects, and forgive the traffic and stuff that's going to be going on around the review, you guys. But that's what happens when we're doing it live. But I'm going to start off and say that I pretty much absolutely adored this movie. I loved it. I was rapt the entire time. I thought the performances were all really good. I loved that I couldn't guess what was going to happen next, and I was completely shocked at a couple of times, which doesn't really happen that often. And it was, there were a lot of cool... This is body horror, really, when it comes down to it, and I loved it. I just absolutely loved this movie. Katie?
I've never been more afraid of the color pink. I thought that there were some scenes where there was just some melding of bodies without going into too much extreme detail. That was one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in a movie, and the acting was great. Everyone in the theater was riveted to the screen, myself included. I think it truly did Lovecraft short story justice, and I was very impressed.
I guess I'm going to be the first slight detractor. I loved most of this movie, but there's one performance in particular that took me out of it in a lot of instances, and in turn induced laughs at times when they were supposed to be there. And then there were definitely times when they were not supposed to be there, and it was times like that where I kind of felt like this person should not have actually been cast in this role. And I'm not going to say any specifics unless we do go into any spoilers here at the very end or something of that nature, but yeah, aside from that, this was visually one of the most ambitious and breathtaking films I've seen in a great long while, and it, legitimately, it tried to juggle too many tones at times for my taste, and that's really the one thing that kept it from being like one of the most memorable visual, and as we've already kind of revealed, body horror films that I've seen in a great long time. There was something at the end of the second act that legitimately floored me and was one of the most messed up things I've seen in a great long time. So there you have it.
Robert?
Well, I dug the hell out of this movie, but honestly I was not very engaged as much as I thought it would be. Personally, I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft, and I was very excited going into this movie. Don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful, for a lack of a better term, a visually orgasmic in the color spectrum of what they've used, and it was quite beautiful. And like what was talking before, the body horror aspect is a big thing in this movie. Or at least for a good chunk of the movie, I would say. But they do take some liberties on stretching out this story from the short story, but honestly it worked actually very well for the most part. Like what you talked about with certain dialogue and everything, it did kind of pull you out of the movie. Laughs that shouldn't have been at that moment that were, but other than that, I adored this movie. I would watch it again, and I probably will add this to my collection.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely going in my collection. So just real quickly getting through the story of it without spoiling anything. I don't know that we'll do a spoiler section because it's it's not even available for people, really.
No, it's on a limited release.
Yeah,
throughout.
Yeah, it's only in theaters for like a couple limited engagements, and then it doesn't hit VOD till next month. So yeah.
So story-wise, it is about a family living in in the sticks, as it were, in the middle of a forest, really doing with a farm. I don't know many farms that are like in the middle of forests, but okay. And it's an alpaca farm, which is a joke kind of played throughout the movie. And it's basically what happens is the first night that we see in the movie, a meteor essentially lands in the front yard, and again, without giving away things, weird stuff starts to happen after this meteor lands and starts to affect the biomes and
the micro and macro biome.
Yes, all around it, and it's very, very interesting. And I would hesitate to say more without, I feel like people should experience this on their own the way we did, without as with as little foreknowledge of what's in the movie as possible. So,
definitely.
That's the long and short of the story. How this affects the family and everything around them. So I at the risk of rehashing a little bit, and I'll try not to, I loved it. I enjoyed the way it played out. There was a couple times, yes, where there was laughter when there probably shouldn't have been, but that was more, I chalked that up to more people's discomfort at what was on screen. And so I think depending on your crowd, you might have that, but it's only because they're not used to seeing what was being shown to us. And so it was a lot of nervous laughter. Some of it was actually intentional. I know there were a couple of points in there where he was kind of making a joke that would feel out of place, but at the time when people are starting to, sort of spin off, as it were, you can excuse that because their behavior is irrational at that point. So I dug the way the story played out. Story interesting enough for you?
I didn't think that the isolated events where humor kind of slipped into the cracks of, predominantly horrific scenes was necessarily detracted from them, but that's just me and I'm weird, so I kind of liked that. It was a bit of a departure from what I think would normally be expected from a horror movie, so I don't know. I kind of dug it.
Fuego?
Deterioration of family, cosmic storytelling, melding these together. I dig the hell out of that sort of stuff, and that's where I felt like when you start to really understand the full scope of what's potentially transpiring here, and an added dynamic that a investigative character, I guess, brings to it. At first I was a little off-put by him, but then when I started to realize more of what he was there to investigate and what it was going to signify as far as the scope of things and everything, that's where I was a little bit more into how his character was written and his place and his purpose and everything. It's just this story went in places that I can't divulge, unfortunately, and that's some of the most fun of this entire experience, I would say, especially having not read the short story like Robert. I think he's the only one that did, right? None of the rest of us were familiar with it. Okay. So, I didn't know where this was going. I had suspicions, but it went further in a lot of ways than I was expecting, and major credit for Stanley and his co-writer on this, who helped him out with putting the script together. So, how about you, man?
All right. Well, honestly, I like the way they did this story. They did do a lot of liberal changes from the original story. But actually, for how they're modernizing it, it worked out very well.
Well, we're talking over like over 100 years, right?
Exactly. The story was written back in 1927.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everything. But that's the thing is, like, even with the original story, how he described radiation poisoning and stuff like that was spot on before they actually even really knew all of that stuff.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Damn.
So, but it's like, I'd recommend everyone watching this movie and reading the story, especially.
I'm probably going to go home and read it tonight.
Honestly,
in what order,
honestly,
though?
I would
in that order.
Please do,
yeah.
Because like there are some similarities obviously between the stories. You're going to have that, but how they rewrote everything, it worked out very nicely. Character changes, yes, but for the most part, events did portray that way. Certain aspects with the family were completely different.
Maybe on Sunday we'll do a maybe Sunday we'll do a spoiler and a book or a story comparison.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that would give
that
us
could
a
be
chance
dope.
to read
Yeah.
a short
Yeah,
story.
why don't we do that?
Because that'll give us enough time for all of us to get it done and everything.
Yeah.
I'll fucking go through it again.
So, acting. Let's get into the acting. Again, I was on board. I guess there was one person that was weak. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same person that you thought was weak, Fuego. But personally, I thought that the teenage boy was a little lackluster for me.
The older brother. Yeah.
But everyone else I thought was good. Another character had a bit of a stereotypical arc, or only in that, it's the same way that a lot of people that age rebel, and it's just like, nah. But outside of that, I thought especially Nicolas Cage and his wife were phenomenal in this. His wife is, I can't remember her name, but she was the lead wife in Nip Tuck as well.
Right.
And so I really appreciate her as an actress. And so, yeah, I dug the acting. Katie?
Teenage daughter was rebelling. Like, I think you were inferring that you had a bit of an issue with her character, and I thought that her role was, could have used a little bit more depth. But all in all, I thought a pretty good job was done all around by all the actors.
Well, I especially like the kid who was seen in the flashback scenes in The Haunting of Hill House. He's great in this. Definitely has some instances to shine, and as the possessiveness of this, it's shown in the trailer that a meteor comes down and it starts to make all the family act weird, and I think he's great. Cage was too cagey at times for me, and that was really what took me out of it. Really, and only in a few specific scenes where I felt like he overdid it, because there were others where I felt he was great, but there was just a handful here and there. And in some, I'm assuming he was maybe directed to act like that
I noticed
in
those times too,
in
but
some instances.
I totally think that's what it was.
Yeah, okay. Because I've seen that. I mean, even in Mandy, he didn't feel.
Shifts.
Yeah. Even in Mandy,
Felt
he
much
didn't
more
feel.
natural in Mandy.
Well, but
That's true.
Mandy wasn't as cagey as this movie, though. I
don't know what that
but
means.
yet,
Couple scenes.
it
yeah.
didn't feel silly to me, though. And maybe that's just personal opinion and
Okay.
stuff like
No,
that.
I
you
Maybe
know?
the silliness
the
made
little
more
like,
sense in
goofiness with
Mandy.
and
The-
everything.
I actually didn't feel Mandy was goofy at all.
I feel-
There's a couple points, honestly.
with the bikers.
Big. He went really big at times in Mandy, but it did feel a little bit more out of place here than it did in Mandy.
Yeah,
but
that's the only
maybe
thing.
But
I'm
again,
saying.
I feel like he was
He
directed
nailed
that
some other
way,
scenes,
and
though,
there
man,
was a story-driven reason behind it.
Truly,
So you
true.
got to at least.
Yeah.
Yes, he was maybe a bit much, but he was. It was definitely story-driven as to
Yeah.
why.
There's a reason for that madness,
Yeah.
basically, to
Right.
happen.
Oh, I
it's
saw
for-
it. I just didn't always
Yeah.
buy it.
That's
you
fair.
know?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Totally fair. And we don't need to
yeah.
jump on it. It's just we
Yeah.
see what you're saying, but
Yeah,
it's different perspective.
that was just the way I reacted to it. But I actually thought even the two teens weren't bad. I mean, yes, you've got some tropes and stereotypes with them and stuff, but I felt like they're like talking smack back and forth to each other like typical
That's fun.
teenage siblings and stuff. I liked that stuff. I thought that was well-written dialogue and it was well delivered. I didn't really feel like there was a bad performance in this movie. There was just instances where I felt like it was a little over the top, but that's, once again, just me. So.
I agree with you on that. Like, nobody really fell short or underperformed in this movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
But there were definitely some parts where it could have been better. I'm not sure really if it was just due to the writing of it or just how they were directed. But it could have been a lot more. Especially, I would say, at least with the daughter. Personally, I would have liked a little bit more with that. And again, with this whole the changing of the family. It's completely like that family is completely different from the story. So you gotta kind of. It was kind of hard for me to tear that away while watching this.
It's why I purposely didn't read it before watching the film.
I know.
Yeah.
And well, the thing is that it's like being one of my favorite Lovecraft stories and everything. I
it's holy
fairly know
ground.
this pretty well. But at least with the acting overall, I enjoyed everybody. It was fairly believable. We definitely had some Nick Cage at his cagiest. That's for damn sure. But other than that, I don't have any issues with really most of the acting in this movie.
All right.
Even Tommy Chong, his,
No, I think
he
he's
was
fine.
his-
Yeah,
his
he's
small
just
part
kind of
and
there.
everything,
Yeah.
but that's the thing, though. Is I was kind of worried with him being thrown in there it was gonna muck up the story a little bit. He
I
was
actually
just
quite-
thrown in there.
I enjoyed his
quite liked
character.
where it went with him
Well,
too.
with him, with how they did his character, it actually worked very well. Again, like I said, with the modern retelling of the story, how they played everything out was a lot better than what I
We'll
was
go
wishing.
more in depth on Sunday. about
Yeah,
that.
it's
Cool,
You're,
cool,
you're,
cool.
It'll be a lot
you're
easier,
flagoing
guys.
this a little bit with
I
that.
know. I know. I'm trying to tear it
I'm a
apart.
bad influence, man.
All right, so getting into the effects, and just so you know, Katie had to go she had to go move a car that was parked illegally. So we're going to go ahead and continue on here talking about the effects. And there were both a lot of practical effects and a lot of CG effects. And I personally think, I'm sure we all agree, but the practical, well, I don't know that we all agree, but I think the practical was stronger than the digital, but there was still some good digital and some bad digital. I think the soft focus towards the end didn't help the digital effects towards the end, but there was still a lot of good to be had there. But yeah, definitely the actual practical effects were the stars of the show for me, on the level, maybe not quite on the level, but up there with movies like The Thing and things like that happened that are like crazy. So I was all about the effects in this one.
Yeah, there was some genuinely impressive, just disturbing stuff that was done on the practical side of things. And I definitely feel like this is something that, with some sort of inebriated mind from psychedelics or something of that nature, would probably lend itself to some of the digital that we see in this film, especially with some stuff that happens in the third act. I felt like I was in a later Tool music video or something, and that was fine for me. I thought it was cool. And yes, there are occasional times where we've got like a CG insect at one point, and then also a disturbing but yes, very fake-looking instance with a cat on a highway. So I dug it though, and there's some weird like off-focusing camera bits here and there that almost make you look like you're being like ripped between the possibility of different worlds and stuff like that.
That
I thought
looked.
I thought that stuff looked really trippy, and if I was on some sort of hallucinogen or whatever, I'm sure it would have been incredible, and maybe I wouldn't have been so detracting of some of the acting bits that I was talking about. But yeah, I thought visually, Stanley did an amazing job with his effects team. Even if some of it was very off-puttingly heavy-handed with the digital, I actually liked the pinks and some of the craziness. I actually really dug that stuff personally. So
Perfect Lovecraftian horror. Like the effects for this were great, and I felt they had a nice little homage to John Carpenter's The Thing at one point in the movie. I'm not going to go into super detail and everything, but that was a cool part. But like you guys were mentioning too, with the CG and everything, at times I did feel it was a little lackluster, but they had a nice short but quick cutaway at the same time where it played off very well, especially with the intermix of the colors and everything. Like the color hues they used in this movie were amazing. Like I thought they worked out so great, and like I said earlier, it's a technicolor orgasm basically. It was amazing, and Richard Stanley did a fantastic job with just the makeup effects and just overall getting the feel of a Lovecraftian horror of what it should be.
Well, and I love the set design too, with
Yeah,
the
production
flowers,
design, yeah.
production design, the way he framed up some of the shots with the light illuminating from the windows of this house and stuff. It was just a brilliant looking film, throughout, I thought.
Yeah, the cinematography was really nice, and it worked very well with all the production design. But yeah, the production design deserves to be lauded because it evolved through the whole movie. It kept changing and changing and changing, and you start to see this new life kind of starting to take over in very subtle ways.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought pulling that, he did an amazing job of creating that from the story. Like from the beginning of the meteor falling to everything that happened on the farm.
Nice.
It
Really?
was great.
That's cool.
Like I've said before, I dug the hell out of this movie. Definitely.
Yeah. I'm
oh my
surprised that you
God.
didn't like it as much as I did, Fuego. I felt like this would be more up your alley.
I enjoyed just to correct, I enjoyed the hell out of it, but there was a couple key things in both the script and in one particular performance that took me out of it just a little bit and left me from giving it like 5 stars, one of my favorite like bits of just shocking horror that I'd seen in a long time. Because this movie did some things that as you mentioned earlier, I did not expect, and I was really thrown back by. I can't remember the last time in a film it's just like, oh my God, like that, and I definitely did that at one particular point in this movie.
Especially for the third act, like they changed a lot, and I was not expecting what they did with that third act, and I was super impressed and happy with it.
Yeah, there were actually a couple of those moments for me. With the first reveal of what we're talking about, and then when there's some motion from that you're not expecting.
That made me jump too.
That freaked everyone out. Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah, so again, the effects absolutely have to be touted here, and so do the production design and the cinematography. Like Fuego was saying, it was beautifully shot, and it was just really interesting. The whole thing was interesting visually. And to me, I like the dialogue. I like the voiceover bit that we get at the end and how it
and the beginning
in.
too. Yeah, it bookends things very well.
So one thing that I've been waiting to talk about that I think was my absolute favorite thing in the whole movie was the music and the sound design.
Oh, the sound design and
the
score
sound design
brought
was
so
fantastic
much.
Because there was a lot of disembodied voice stuff at times, and literal high-pitched sounds and things like that you're trying to pick up on, that your characters are starting to hear. And then there's vocal, there's things done to vocals towards the end, kind of with the Tommy Chong has a little bit of stuff going on.
Oh, that part's terrific.
Yeah, so the sound design was outstanding, but specifically the music. From the very beginning, I was totally enraptured by the musical score.
I heard you even say it to us.
I did. I leaned over. I was like, I already love the music, and it was like only 30 seconds in, but it carried through, and it was like epic, like The Witcher at times, and had sort of some similar musical beats, but it was also very sort of esoteric and just interesting and almost alien at times. And I just really, it's absolutely a vinyl I'm going to seek out if they release one. Because it's, oh my God, it was so good. What about sound and music for you guys?
The score was great, and haunting, ethereal, building, brooding, all of that stuff that and also otherworldly at times too, which really just added to the atmosphere of everything that was transpiring. But really, after the meteor hits and you start really realizing on a sonic level, how it's affecting people from these weird high-pitched noises that maybe only like a dog could hear, for instance, and the dog is spooked immediately and knows there is something big-time bad going down. And once, some of the human characters start to pick up on these weird, just otherworldly, like, pitches and tones and stuff like that, it added so much more of a feeling of brooding dread to everything that was going down. I mean, really, I pretty much loved everything about this movie, sonically and visually. It was just a couple tiny things that I had gripes with, but especially even thinking about it more as we're discussing it, because I felt like, yes, okay, as you really kind of realize some of the stuff that's going on, this film finished so strong in both a visual and an audio capacity. So
I felt satisfied too.
Same, yeah.
No, the same. Yeah, I'm gonna basically kind of quick gloss over this because you guys pretty much hit the same points on everything. But between the music and the sound design, like it brought you right into those characters. It made you feel uneasy at times and everything, and especially for like going back into the third act for what they use and all of that, like it worked so well.
Truly.
So basically, that's the sweet and short of that part.
Yeah, it really is something that you have to experience if you want to experience something different in horror. With the amount of samey stuff, and of course sequels and prequels and requels and all this stuff, there's not a whole lot of new out there. Mandy was one that was kind of new. This is another one, and it just so happens they both have Nicolas Cage, but they were both visually stunning. And Richard Stanley, I'm very excited to see if he continues to do more, because if this is an indication of where he's at now compared to where he was, then I am very excited to see more.
And I know they've been talking, like, basically this is opening up a whole new Lovecraft world of what they're planning.
Is that what
And
this
what
one
he
was
wants-
supposed-
and
this
what
is
he
the
wants
first
to
of a
do.
trilogy or something?
Yep, because if you in there like this isn't necessarily spoilers and everything, because if you know the Lovecraft stories, you know like the towns
together.
and everything in between, like for Massachusetts, Arkham, Ipswich, Innsmouth, and stuff like that. It's all referenced in this movie. So I thought that was I really liked those little bits that they pulled in from all the parts of the universe, because this again, hopefully it's going to open up more of what we get.
Well, we see. I mean, Lovecraft is all about
The cosmic
interdimensional,
horror and,
cosmic kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
body horror. Biggest
we see some of that, and it's really, really cool. So let's go ahead and call this one here. It's already a bit of a long review, but we are going to do a separate spoiler discussion that we're also going to compare to
horror show.
BS Movies Podcast. Yeah.
All right, your check's in the mail. So we'll do a spoiler discussion, and Fuego, I don't know if I'll have time, but Fuego will have time to read the story, and so we'll do a more of a comparison in that review as well. So if you guys can get access to it, it's limited release right now, and then it's going to be in VOD in about a month, you said, Fuego?
Sometime in early February. I think February 4th.
Oh, early February.
Yeah.
So just a couple weeks. Okay. Definitely put it on your list, you guys.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that this is one of those movies that I know early on is going to probably coast into my 10 by the end of the year, my top 10.
It was a sight to behold, man.
Yeah, it's just it had that many unique, enjoyable qualities to me that I think it might make it, judging by the past few years worth of lists that we've done.
Yeah.
So thank you guys again for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias to all our patrons. I've been Jaime and Fuego.
Robert Duell.
And remember,
Stay scared.